guys, this is the Ekron Writer here, welcoming you to another podfic. It's been a long time since I did these things. And this one happens to be one of my most favorite epics that I made especially for Mortal Kombat. Shaolin Monks Part 2. It is a continuation of the original Shaolin Monks, featuring Liu Kang and Kung Lao. And this was actually inspired by Ferocious Wraith, aka Warlock Waluigi, who made a Let's Play of Shaolin Monks since last March. And he completed it like last December. So, actually it was a little sooner than that. It was like back in April, but it was a week before the Mortal Kombat movie. So anyway, this was roughly inspired by that. Well, also spite as well from the creators because how they treated Kung Lao so much. But no fret, Kung Lao fans. I happen to be a huge fan of Kung Lao, as well as the classic Mortal Kombat. And Shaolin Monks brought me back to it. And I promise that this is gonna give Kung Lao the comeuppance he truly deserves. So, this story features exactly that. This pretty much centers around Kung Lao, while Liu Kang has more of a back seat, so sorry to disappoint you in advance. So, let's get this started. Alright, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks Part 2. Welcome to my first ever Mortal Kombat fanfiction. I've had several random ideas run through my head in intervals ever since I saw the finale of Warlock Waluigi's LP of Shaolin Monks. I became a huge fan of Kung Lao, and I was disappointed in what NetherRealm Studios had done with 10, 11, and Battle of the Realms, especially when they were highlighted by 616 Entertainment and mostly the fourth Snake. Now I know that Midway was planning to do a sequel, but it suffered through bankruptcy. Thus Fire and Ice never came to be. I always wanted Sub-Zero and Scorpion to be a subplot for Liu Kang and Kung Lao. For this one reason never mentioned. I'll let the story do all the talking. A trio of male martial artists were standing at the epicenter of an outside arena. The floor was decorative, though it was hard to tell with all the splatters of blood. The Thunder God Raiden was with his two promising disciples from China representing the Order of Light, the two Shaolin monks, Liu Kang and Kung Lao. The monk with a red bandana and bare chest, red torn trousers, and a pair of black shoes queried, "So what now, Master Raiden?" Well, actually, this takes place soon after a scene from Shaolin Monks.
So who won? Liu Kang or Kung Lao?
Kung Lao. Liu Kang. What now, Master Raiden?
Shao Kahn has been destroyed. You have brought life and prosperity, not only for Earth but for this realm as well, my warriors. And you have freed the spirits of your ancestors from their inability to lay their lives down for each other and work together.
You fought bravely, Liu Kang.
Thank you, Katana. So what happens now?
I will try to rebuild this realm according to my true father's wishes.
I meant between us.
Whoever said anything about there being an us?
She's hot. And she picks Liu Kang over me? What's wrong with this picture? Maybe I have time to find that clone of hers somebody mentioned.
Did I really free my ancestors?
This was the plan of the Elder Gods, Kung Lao. This was the reason you were allowed to follow the enemy's plots. What the enemy means for evil, a greater force will always turn for good. You have freed the past and future. Well done, champion of Mortal Kombat. Now come, it is time to return home.
That ending scene there, that really inspired me to keep the story going. Oh man. I only wish it would continue from there, but it didn't. So, let's see. Alright, it pretty much ended right here. You want to see the rest of the story, you can see it elsewhere. So here we are. As the Thunder God was escorting the Earthrealm warriors out of Shao Kahn's arena, Kitana gave Liu Kang a temporary gaze, wondering what the future would hold if there should be another tournament, and if Edenia shall be under harsh rule once more. As she noticed the nameless spectators gather and roar behind them, she saw a break through the rear. Her eyes began to spot a bald and very pale figure covered in red war paint. He was raising an amulet of sorts in faded crimson, as if blood was encoded on it. As soon as her peripheral vision made her eyes look toward the sinister figure, he dissipated with a low laugh. She could have sworn she saw Quan Chi, the Netherrealm sorcerer, and her throat closed up when she theorized if he'd resurrect his so-called father, whom she saw was destroyed by the heroic Shaolin monks just a few moments ago. Several minutes had passed as Raiden led his warriors Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, Kung Lao, Jax, and Johnny Cage back to the Wuxi Academy. Sorry if I spelled that wrong. Due to his limited powers in Outworld, he was only capable of defending his fellow heroes from any random threat or if there was an environmental hazard along the way. Luckily, it wasn't quite as tumultuous as he figured. Eventually, the sextet stepped into more peaceful territory. The weather was calm, the temperature was balmy, though some of the trees had fallen and burnt debris laid in some distant spots next to the esteemed establishment. While there were a few patches of scorched stone, the academy still stood with pride and strength. Numerous monks greeted and congratulated their champions as they knew the Earthrealm had been saved, while Outworld lost their 9-tournament streak. Raiden did make a few different portals for Sonya, Jax, and Johnny to go to their corresponding homelands, but the monks stayed with the bustling crowds. Kung Lao, however, wasn't quite into the feast and festivities, as he was more of an introvert, unlike his close partner, whom while they aren't related, they feel as though as close as brothers. Liu Kang wasn't ashamed on stating to the enemy, claiming he was the descendant of the great Kung Lao, as it was a form of intimidation, since he had the skills, talent, and endurance to even surpass the legendary warrior. The pseudo-cowboy decided to stop by and pay a visit to someone he held dear. The 6-year-old boy Kung Jin was being tucked in by his long-lost uncle after they caught up on his lost time, since it was difficult to measure traveling from realm to realm. Raiden came to the conclusion the heroes were gone for a few weeks, since the Tarkhan invasion. Jin had always admired him for his adventures, valiance, and prowess. He wished he carried on Lao's legacy just as he did for his direct ancestor. "I knew you would come back. It felt so long, but I always knew you'd make it." "Thanks, Jin." He grinned to his only kin. "You're the only reason why I should return here. even knowing that peace and prosperity won't be long. Aside from Liu Kang, you always motivated me to protect China and all of Earthrealm. Jin smiled and his eyes lit up. Just like our ancestor. I knew you were more like him. Lao just grinned and walked out of his room. Hey, Uncle, he turned. Glad you're home. For once, Jin even saw his lost relative's smile from ear to ear. It filled his heart with warmth and comfort before Lao closed the door as Jin began to drift off to sleep. As Kung Lao headed to the ground floor, he noticed it wasn't as quiet nor peaceful. He descended the wooden staircase. He heard another monk shouting out profanities in which only the Chinese understood. At first he thought the random monk was drunk from the celebration of Earthrealm's victory. However, he wasn't slurring and he was very cohesive. Lao understood as he kept on ranting of an eternal curse. As he tried to reason with the distraught warrior, he stated that Lao and Liu had been hexed. Haven't you heard what you've done? On what happened to the great Kung Lao? He was eternally damned after he became champion of Mortal Kombat. He became ageless, and he can never die. He even outlived his own family and friends, and watched them slowly wither and perish one at a time. He became so frail and lost the will to fight, as he was defeated by Prince Goro, only to have his soul imprisoned by Shang Tsung. Kung Lao has heard stories of his ancestor, but never like this. He not once heard that the victorious protector of his or her realm would have his or her soul tainted by the elder gods. As he absorbed the monk's discouraging dialogue, he became more despondent. What? The monk laid his calloused hands firmly on his shoulders, staring into Lao's glazy eyes. Don't you see? Both of you may have saved Earthrealm and fulfilled the great Kung Lao's destiny. But all of these victories gave both of you a terrible fate. Both of you will suffer being ageless while all at the same time lose the people you protect. Lao's eyes widened as he backed away. No, I don't believe it. The great Kung Lao would never accept that lowly state. That's not entirely up to you, Kung Lao. The elder gods had sealed your fates. Right after they created the very first tournament. How do you think Goro and the rest of our enemies lived so damn long? His throat tightened as his fellow brothers in Kung Jin re-entered his mind. Well, is there a method to break the curse? With a steely stare he answered. The effects are irreversible. Lao hardly had anything to say. But we just won! Raiden never told us this was going to happen. Why didn't he tell us about this? What about Jin, our friends, and the Lotus Society? He just sulked and slowly shook his head. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry, Lao. Silence and a dark cloud descended onto the land. Not even the Temple of Light gave him any assurance in Kung Lao's heart. While he sat and sulked on one of the balconies, he can endure many blows done by the endless grunts throughout the living forest onward, or the Shadow Priest's lightning, or Reptile and his vicious snake, or some of Kintaro's muscular arms, but hardly Shao Kahn's deadly mallet. But this, he wasn't sure if he can endure this deep pang that was greatly dwindling his broken spirit. He was almost startled as he felt a weighted hand rest on his right shoulder. Kung Lao looked up, and he saw someone look over him. Huh? Lord Raiden. This is surely unlike you, Kung Lao. Your partner Liu Kang has stayed up longer than usual. Yet he has mingled with his fellow monks. But you are just with your own lonesome. He knew Lao would rather be solitary and surrounded by tranquility, unlike his more ardent comrade, but Lao wouldn't miss out on a joyous occasion, albeit observe it from a distance. Now it was in complete opaqueness. Lao just sulked more, never wishing to look at the mentor whom he had betrayed him. Lord Raiden, is the Mortal Kombat champion bound to an everlasting curse? Who told you this? Never looking up, Lao stated. One of the monks told me. The champion's reward isn't just to preserve Earthrealm for another generation, but he becomes immortal and outlives his own loved ones. He said my ancestors suffered through the same fate. He heavily turned his head. Is this true? It's true. For all champions of Mortal Kombat. So too is Liu Kang, even those champions before us. Do you wish to discuss this? Lao's body felt like an anvil. No, I'm all right. I understand, like ancestor to descendant. Even Goro, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn? He faced his mentor, who had a blank expression. Yes, warrior. He suddenly fell into a deep depression. All he did was take a deep sigh as he dragged his feet. Descended to the training grounds, then left the academy behind. All Raiden did was just watch his disciple leave. Kung Lao's mind was always elsewhere as he wandered aimlessly away from the compound, not even bothering to look at his home for a brief moment. He would never say a word to Liu Kang, and he may find the answer tomorrow once the celebration subsides, and it's just another typical same-old day of rigorous training. He never cared of the bright pink fluorescent lights greeting him, coming from a nearby bar. For once, he wound up at the city outskirts of not just the academy, but the temple as well. He hardly steps out of his comfort zone. He just needed to be away from familiar territory and try to relieve his heavy, clouded mind. That's just as bad as those drunkards in the distance. He continued to wander into the cold, hard concrete, and his ears perked up. He had this kind of sensation before, and his heart raced. According to his instincts, it's usually danger. He followed the chill down his spine and made a quick walk toward another desolate corner. He heard a screech belonging to a shrill female voice and realized she was under stress. At first he thought it was Sonya, but her voice was too high, probably younger. He hugged beside the corner as he observed a vague woman in her late 20s being yanked and taken down by a bulky man towering over her. He watched her thrash the sick man's arms away as he was attempting to advance on her. As she resisted, he knocked her to the stone ledge. He continued to watch the dismay. Then, while the infuriated male pinned her, his arm was caught in a sling. Only, it was someone's strong, though flimsy hand. "Let her go, pig!" The combatant managed to twist his arm backward, nearly cracking it, and having the man squeal. With his free hands, Lao knocked the brute away and raised his razor-rimmed hat. He stuck it near his neck as a warning, with a tiny blood searing his throat. He swore under his breath to never lay a hand on the damsel again. Lao was so close he could have sworn the abuser was feeling his heat and hatred. With a sharp heel turn, Lao stormed aside and took the helpless girl by the hand. He then told her to hold on to him seconds before he teleported a few feet away. He released the young denizen, who looked the same age as him, but very frantic, was wearing casual clothing as well as a tomboyish hairdo. "It's okay. You're safe now," he assured in a harsh whisper. The man was only a foot taller compared to her, and wearing a top hat like a cowboy's, she figured he is as such, though he never spoke with a Western accent. Through her vacant vision, she managed to make out his features. He looked to be Asian, contrary to her own facade. She tried to calm her breathing Now she's in assuring arms. Thank you. He simply just tipped his hat to her and gave a slight bow. As he did, his features became more noticeable in the dim, tall light, even making his hat sparkle by the metallic rims. Her mind began to register. You're Kung Lao. Indeed, he responded in a coy manner. I've heard and seen a lot of things about you. Suddenly his charm seemed to rub off on her. Much obliged. I am one of the prestigious Shaolin Monks, as a representation of the Order of Light. And you? She introduced herself as Aiko Crackle, and she was new to the streets. She knew the Shaolin were from China, which was unfamiliar territory to her. He began to notice he wasn't in China, but rather somewhere in the States, particularly in New Jersey, she said. How did he wind up at a different side of the world so suddenly? Could it be Raiden? Back to the roots, there's the songs for that. This fanfic should be made into a series, the MK remix by another song. Usual themes would play from Shaolin monks before they return to Earthrealm. Also, this story is loosely based on Shaolin monks. After the second Mortal Kombat tournament, though not one piece of media had said about the catch on being champion. I was deeply appalled by that, and the modern Mortal Kombat titles, and I recently encountered a fanfic titled The Mortal Kombat Tournament, a retelling of the original fight with Kung Lao, chosen as the protector and losing willingly to Goro, with Earthrealm defenseless and losing to Outworld's 10th victory. Those accursed things, as well as the finale of the aforementioned LP, and the history of Mortal Kombat Marathon with Fort Snake's vids gave me the push I needed. At first, I was going to name my OC as Crackle a long time ago, but it won't be such a good name. So, who is this woman Kung Lao saved? And how and why did he abruptly wind up in a distant region from his home? Find out soon. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing out, and I hope this was a good start to my first Mortal Kombat epic. I'll see you guys later. Hopefully I'll do the next chapter someday.